Really? Okay. Something like that. All right, we should be good to go. Call the meeting to order at 6:31. Call BG Ramos.
Here.
Christopher Riley. Here. Ian Menke.
Here.
Kim Rada is excused. Myself, present. Dave Nagel. Here. Here. And our new member, Peter Menke. Here. All right. We have a quorum. We are good to go. Any public comment this evening? You're going public here today. Not yet. Okay. We'll go past that. Okay, a motion to approve the minutes from the May 22nd meeting. Copy out if anybody would like to do so.
I'll make a motion to accept the meeting minutes of May 27th. Or 22nd, I'm sorry, 2nd.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. This evening we have Bob Roach here from Prior Architect. He facilitated the structural analysis.
Yes.
CDS,
Engineering, structural engineering.
That was Jeff Sanderson, and he came out and did the evaluation. I met him with facility staff a couple different times at the library to get access points and to get him where he needed to go. He produced the report, which most of you have a copy of. Sent it out email as well. It looks pretty favorable, I think, for us, what we need for the grant going forward. So I invited them here this evening to just have a discussion. If you guys have any general questions, you could ask and move forward.
I have a question. And reviewing this, like basically this particular, been involved with the library and the possible, the configurations of the proposed design as well as the grant process. I think this will suit our needs for the grant. We do have the clarification about the loads on the first floor. The current design at this point incorporates basically keeping as is, which is reading rooms, that type of thing, not stack loads. If we were to have to improve that, if we decided we wanted to improve that, what are we talking scope of work? Got a general idea of it? What will we have to do?
Well, what you have is you have an existing reinforced concrete slab. So this would need some steel support underneath it.
So raise it?
Now, not necessarily raise it, but just enhance it to give it some support underneath so that could take the additional loading. Because right now you're at about 75 pounds a square foot. You need to be at about 150 pounds a square foot.
But it is doable if we were to have to consider.
It's doable. It's just the effect that it has on the spaces below. Because if we're talking about adding beams and columns to support those beams, where do those columns fall? What does that do to your headroom, your mechanicals?
The basement is already creepy.
Basement.
Yeah, you can walk clear. Okay, I just wondered if it's a possibility that if we have to consider it, I wondered if it was something.
Yeah, I think that if we could work with PES to come up with a couple of different options, see what kind of effect, what the ripple effects are of that supporting structure.
Okay.
Why don't you go ahead and, if you want to just give us a general overview, and then you can take any other questions if that, or is everybody just comfortable asking questions, or do you want to get an overview from them?
Keep going.
No, okay, so our scope was the 1938 section of the building, the first and the second floor, framing to see which areas could support the stack areas, which calls for 150 pounds per square foot. So we got all the existing documentation. Jeff was out here a number of times, meeting with town staff, reviewing the drawings, and there was also we also hired some contractors to perform a survey. We verified where we could in areas that were exposed to view, the existing two-way reinforced slab on the first floor, and on the second floor, 2x10 wood joists at 16 inches. So, and here's the man right now.
Yeah. How you doing, Jeff?
Good, I'm trying to get in the building, it's on the west entrance, which is locked.
Sorry about that.
Yep, so we were just hitting the highlights of the report here.
Okay.
Just going through your findings.
Yep.
So if you wanted to take over, I was just going through. And the question that was asked before we got to this point was if they wanted to utilize the first floor reinforced slab, what could be done to bring that up to 150 pound
Yeah, so
foot load?
that could be done in a number of ways and none of them are easy, to be honest with you. One way is to cut down the span of the structure wherever you'd like to achieve the 150 PSF. And that would be in the form of, introducing either new beams or walls or what have you, just new supports, roughly a mid-span or whatever is, makes sense for you guys and works structurally. Second option would be to reinforce the existing structure, and that's not easy either, because we're talking about most likely introducing some kind of steel plate or some other means of reinforcement to the underside of all of those concrete joists that you're trying to bring up to 150 PSF. Like I said, neither of those options are easy, but off the top of my head, I can't think of a third option.
Sounds like the reinforcing the floor is gonna be the most expensive option as well.
Yeah, because we're talking about doing that everywhere that you want to
Yeah.
bump it up to 150, which would, in my mind, be pretty much the entire first floor, right? At least in the areas where you have the longer spans, like you have that hallway down in the basement, that is a relatively short span, that's probably fine as is. But my analysis, I kind of focused on the larger span areas and kind of went with the worst case scenario to arrive at the 70 to 75 PSF that I have in the report. But I mean, I guess the third option would be most difficult, which is to reframe the floor.
Yeah.
Of course, but I'm assuming the goal is to keep it largely as is.
Right, I think if we get to that point where we need to do that, it's gonna have to be a consideration of.
Right, I
What-
just
what are we
wondered if
doing?
it was a feasible one, that's all.
Yeah.
It's nobody's first choice.
I think the preference obviously is to leave, like we talked about, leave that building alone and try and move forward with what we have.
Yeah, because if I was looking at the wording in the Connecticut State Grant, and if I'm interpreting it right, it seems if you don't meet that load, but you are planning not to, put like we're using it today, where it's, it's not, book stacks or anything like that.
Right.
That that's, can be acceptable, as, you may be doing it because of historical limitations or, other reasons as well, so.
I think that's fair, and that's what we're doing, and hopefully we can move forward with that and get it done.
So I think we just want to make sure we know all the options just in case. something comes up.
yeah, something.
Yeah, because that the load that I arrived at, the 70-75 is totally appropriate for the use, right? I mean, that's for frame of reference, when we design new offices, we design it to a bit less than that. So, I was walking around the library, it's not being used anything heavier than an office would be, right?
Right.
So, but the 150, that's that's library stack, that's heavy, that's a lot.
I think we understand that part of it, so it's just a matter of getting through. Anything else you'd like to point out for them? And then I don't know if there's gonna be any other questions.
Yeah, I mean, load rating was the big one. Not much else. I mean, the condition of the building itself, as noted, it was in good structural condition. I didn't notice any areas of degradation or any visible signs of stress or anything like that. So it's not being overloaded, it's not being weathered excessively, so.
Good.
Yeah, and the second floor did appear to be quite robust. The second floor, despite it being wood and steel frame versus the concrete structure on the first floor, it actually did meet the 150 PSF.
Does anyone have any other questions, concerns, or? Gentlemen?
I mean, I know, I've read through it and everything that, it's limited to the extent of what you could see and everything, and I appreciate you not trying to be as non-destructive as possible, and trying to go through it.
Right.
So, I mean, I guess, would there be any concerns in a grant with the information that's in there, or is this what they would need?
I
for
think
the-
this, we have to consider it within the direct design parameters.
Yep.
And therefore, working from there, for example, keeping it to the reading room aspect.
Yeah.
The current design, the proposed design has the upstairs being converted more to office space, but it's not the stacks. It's primarily would be meeting rooms and library staffing. So that would work within the parameters that you've given us for that first floor. Second floor rather. So I think we just have to keep this in mind as we move forward, as we're looking to make some design changes to address budgeting concerns, so that it all has to fit together.
I mean, this was very thorough. I appreciate all the work you guys did on this, and that was.
And we went to apply for the grant a few years ago. Our structural engineering assessment was considered too old. So we at least had to bring us into this, the
Current year.
current time period.
Well, if
So,
there's anything else you need for the grant, if you need something on letterhead from PES or
okay,
just a simpler summary than the report, I'm sure it's not.
Yeah, I'll reach out as needed, or if we need anything else, or if we need to get
Yeah.
something else looked at or reevaluated,
yeah,
we'll certainly
the
touch
grant
base.
process at this point, it's an annual type of thing, and we are not in this current cycle, because you have to apply for it. But the timing of it with the deadlines would be applying for it, have a referendum on it, approval, and then they meet in the November thereafter. So you can't go to that approval meeting unless you've passed referendum, and we're not even on the agenda for referendum this year. So next year, potentially, we could get into this cycle, so we might come back to you and need a more current letter.
Through that process with Manchester.
I have a question, if you don't mind, if I could go out of order, because I'm not sure if you're gonna let these gentlemen leave. When you did the structural engineering for the second floor, it was the open children's area, program area, right? It wasn't where the bookcases are, where you got the 150 square feet?
We went on a couple we went on a couple of locations. There were some, I believe there were speaker openings.
There was a speaker cans in the reading room.
Right, I just wanna
We took
make
those
sure
out and we
Which side of the atrium you were on, so you were on the side with the large meeting rooms, not the side with the children's
Children's area.
stacks and stuff, because that would have been part of the new building. So I'm just trying to make sure. I know the task was to do the original building,
Right,
and the original building is like this, but when you go upstairs,
yeah,
they're kind of joined together.
okay,
So if you're on one side of the atrium, you're in the newer building, and that's where we have actually some stacks of children's books.
okay.
And if you're in the older section, you're in more of the open room areas.
Mhm.
Conference rooms, and I was wondering if that in fact is the timber, the wood and steel and the timber there, if you can remember.
Yeah, it was the original
Okay.
building,
I just wanted to make sure.
yeah,
You're in the corridor looking out the windows out on the atrium. If you're in the corridor upstairs, that's the old portion of the building.
Yeah, but he looked out from underneath, so we're down in the reading.
yeah, we
Right.
got all that information.
Okay, so the reading room you were looking up, and that's exactly.
Right.
what
Yeah,
we wanted
we
to-
were in the,
sorry.
yes.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure, because when it sounded like it was newer construction, I was like, oh. Did we?
Cause what we did is Jeff went and actually marked areas where he wanted to he wanted to do actually pouring in stuff.
Mhm.
I got facilities over there and coordinated, and they're like, yeah, we really don't wanna touch this because we don't know what asbestos and everything else.
Right.
So if I went in through the light cans, speaker cans, wherever we could go to get access.
Yeah, again, very much appreciated.
Without that, without going through that, because nobody wants to go through potential abatement or anything else at this point.
Yeah.
So,
We did have copies of different iterations of plans from
Yeah.
different years.
Yeah, that definitely helped because I was able to more so kind of confirm that those drawings done in the eighties were quite accurate, so. I kind of just took that along with the new information, measured everything up and kind of pieced together.
Thank you, and thank you for letting me ask that
no,
before you.
good question.
Could you give us any more, which continues with that, but gets to the more nitty gritty, a little more information about what we're looking at, especially photos 2, 3, and 4 for those of us that are novices.
Okay, so photo number 2 is the first floor structure. This was giving you a good idea as to how limited the measurements I was able to get, you know what I mean? It was these duct openings going through the floor, and I was kind of able to sneak a tape measure on the edge of the duct, between the duct and the structure. So that's photo number 2.
So that's the
punched
duct
opening.
you see on the right-hand side here?
Yes, the duct is on the right hand side, and then on the left is that the tile forms and the concrete. And then photo 3 is actually from above that, not that exact location, but above that floor. There was a wood sleeper system sitting on the concrete structure. And there were openings in the wood subfloor above the sleepers, so I kind of stuck my camera down in that little interstitial space. So what you're seeing is the sleeper on the right, the concrete structure below, and then the wood subfloor above.
Novice question, what's a sleep?
Sleeper is just literally just a 2x that they sit on top of a floor. It's a way to like build a floor up. In this case, I imagine they did that so they could get electrical through in that space, and or they'll build a floor up for elevation reasons.
Okay, I understand. And photo 4?
Photo 4 is just another area. It's just showing the first floor, the rib slab from underneath, kind of showing how it was framed with the tile forms there on the left, and then the concrete in between. Yeah, exactly.
Okay, thank you. I'll turn this off.
Does anybody else have any other questions for these gentlemen this evening? Good to go.
Thank you
They're
for
all
your
good at
care.
answering our emails as well, so if we come up with something, I'm sure that we can reach out.
Thank you for the care you took, as well as a very concise report. I think this is exactly what we need, having gone through part of the grant process. I think this is what, as I said, we may need an updated letter at some point when we actually hit the send button, but,
Sure.
Thank you for the opportunity and good luck with your grant application.
Yes.
You guys are free to go.
Thank you.
All right, we appreciate it. Thanks, Jeff.
You got it.
See you again.
Yeah.
Sure.
thank you.
Absolutely.
Bob, nice to meet you.
Nice.
So the next item is anything, discussion on the concept plans? You delve into, or is this more of on your side with the board?
It's more of our side, we're starting to talk with the architect about getting quotes for different options, but I just don't have any updates at this time.
Okay. That's fine. Just keep this in the loop. Other business pertinent to the committee, so the only other item is we know we got the additional funding of $30,000 plus or minus whatever it was. My understanding is that money, you guys get to utilize it, but Lark has to approve everything for POs and everything else. So going forward, if you guys get bids, quotes, or whatever, get them to us just so we can get the right process going. I can get Lauren to issue POs, or we can review them whatever we have to do going forward. So we
Okay.
have an idea to, you know, I don't remember how much other money is left in there.
I want to say, I thought it was around like eight, I think it was to bring it up to like 40,000, if I remember the number.
Just 40, I think.
Yeah,
but
sounds
I
about
think the
right.
only thing that's right currently in the offing is that we're back and forth with the architect as we discuss their scope changes that they'll provide to us,
Right.
as we're looking just to qualify what services they will provide, whether it's scopes or we had a quote on the record, but it was kind of earlier in the process when we were still kind of looking at the current process and moving to the town council and what have you. And since we've taken 3 steps back, basically with the not going to referendum this year, that's really not what we need them for.
Yeah.
Set of conceptual plans.
They're very, very, very limited. They're just overalls. No, I'll send it to you too. I'll send it to you.
What we did at the presentation for council.
This
Yeah.
is
Yeah, if I can just get a copy of that, send the copy of it to my work. But they can read.
He likes the big ones. We like.
And then the other thing going forward to discuss for us is I assume we probably want to get back on kind of the same schedule we were anticipating this year of trying to have that discussion, you know, another presentation to council in January or February, you know, get something in before budget to let them know, and then right when they're done with budget, here's the full blown thing, it's a referendum, we have time, you know, referendum
Yeah,
26.
so yeah, I think it's just trying to figure out what that schedule would be of when town council would need to see, I'll say, another introductory like we did, you know, this past year, and then
Right.
when the final one would be. have to be.
Well, I think what they're looking for, as we all remember, is at least 1 or 2 other ideas for concepts that we can present to the council, and then they can have that set a public hearing, like they have to do for the referendum, and they can get some input from the public on what.
They want to see different options of what.
Yeah, they just don't wanna see one option at X amount of dollars, they wanna at least see a couple options. It's.
Well, as we've discussed before, this committee has been around a lot longer than most committees. So there's been several iterations, and basically they've grown into this current option. I think what the facilities and all of the board is coming back and looking at now is to turn around and to take the feedback we have and to either offer options or to go back to some of the concepts that are incorporated in the current design and to see if the alternatives are.
Right, almost like you could put something up there with
No, they're-
even just 2 designs with bid alternates, like, okay, we can eliminate the green roof. and
Because,
pay X
because
or
one of the
whatever.
things that the council came back to, which is really not conducive to the fact that we have a finite amount of space and we don't have the resources of, say, for example, a town could move this to over this department or whatever. We have a finite amount of space and we really can't do the phasing aspect of it in terms of what is proposed. So I know that phasing was something that people throw out. Phasing basically costs more money and to spread the
Understood.
timeline.
And you know, and this is just me talking, a potential option may be going forward. Because, you know, we still are gonna have to do whatever when this thing's under construction, where we're gonna.
For the transition,
Yeah, the
absolutely.
transition.
And I do know that the library staff is working on a plan, if you will. We don't have a location because the location is dependent upon where we're at in the timeline.
Lots of
you
different
know.
things.
I mean, you know, there are things that potentially could be available now that wouldn't be available in the future and vice versa.
Things could, you know, you know, people have heard lots of different things, you know, for OFI. Don't know what's gonna happen there. But the potential maybe is there to either utilize space there, don't know. If departments get shifted to OFI, it could open up space here in this building. that may be able to be utilized on just a short term, something where you have.
Or something that's private, like a retail space that opens up. I
Yep,
mean, there's a number of
there's
various.
stuff downtown that's,
Yeah.
we have Bikini Building, we have other places, so there's a potential to work with, landowner or whatever.
But I think the goal right now from the library staffing, then working with facilities on library is to turn around and say, okay, we need to have a plan of we're moving somewhere.
Mhm.
But again, a lot of it can't be finalized until they know where.
Right, but at least they're getting the plan together, so that's, that's a good thing, and I think, again, that's something we can kind of incorporate in that next presentation. Phase, is like, hey, we have a general plan of how the transition is gonna go, obviously, we're waiting on space because the town might be able to assist us or whatever, we just have to look at that when the time comes when we get there. Cause like you said, we're talking for referendum, okay, if it passes, then you got another maybe 2 years before construction even starts, so yeah, we're looking 3-4 years down the road. So,
Yeah, I mean, if you basically get like what are your requirements for what you're going to be doing in this transition space and get that firmed up, and then basically, then you just gotta wait for when it fits in the timeline to look for the where is really, I think, what it comes down
I
to.
think we need to be cognizant and something that the staff could decide on as to what amount of space is needed,
That's what they're looking at.
which would somewhat limit or open up the different options that may be available.
I know I've even had some initial discussions with the staff just to try to figure out, what other libraries did when they needed, the swing space, and what sort of stuff, that they were looking for, what stuff did they, what stuff do you need to consider, when you're trying to look at the space. And I mean, I've even, brought up, okay, well, making sure, okay, well, what programs do you want to still continue to run, which, especially because there's a possibility you may have to, adjust that based on what swing space you have, so.
or you may have to utilize space at the senior center for programs or Parks and Rec or whatever, I'm sure we're gonna have reduced programming. More than likely during that.
The other thing that the library staff, and they have been working on it, but it's not an easy process, which is culling the collection. There are some things you just don't, they can be taken out and not stored and not worried about having a place for access during the course of that. But it's not an easy process. But they are in the process of it, so hopefully we'll have a pulled down version of the collection. And then they'll have a better idea of, the other couple of the things that they've talked about is 2 spaces, program space, library space. I mean, there's a lot of discussions, and as I said, there's moving parts, but hopefully we'll have a better idea for a plan, because that had not really been addressed, other than they'd started the culling when we had addressed with the council in February.
And it could possibly even be like, when town hall was getting reconstructed and they got basically they put the pod type of modular situation up over there for the transition academy kids over in the senior parking lot. Wasn't huge, but it, it served a purpose, and it may just be something along those lines, because the town has park space and other large areas where something like that could be set up. Obviously, there's inherent cost to that, but it's might be a cheaper option than renting out a place for a year. Those things to be happy with. Any other business anybody would like to bring up? On to public comment. Diane has any?
Should I do this officially? My name's Diane Stam, 104 Steeplechase Drive, Newington, Connecticut. Sorry, I missed that before. I do appreciate you allowing me to ask questions of those folks before they stepped out. And I guess in terms of the planning and the pods, I think there's all sorts of great ideas, and I think really what the library staff needs to struggle with. This is one of the times it's better to be a trustee than an employee. And that is figuring out what programs can we continue to run, how much of the collection needs to be immediately available. would we do longer things? You know, we learned some things from COVID in
Yeah.
terms of like the Lucy to Go program, so maybe we don't have, but if we're gonna have books that are available, it might be, if they're these books, they're generally available, people come in and out all the time. If it's something else and we have it stored more of an offsite storage area, it's either gonna not be available or it's gonna be available with a longer lead time.
Right,
That,
you're
I
gonna need
think-
some time to go pull it. or
Right.
If that's what you want to
Right,
do.
and if we're gonna be pulling it, you know, that means that we're not gonna have the general public accessing it, but it has to be large enough and organized enough for staff to pull it. So again, there's all sorts of things that can come in different shapes and sizes. As we've talked, you know, everything changes. Could have been Food Mart's pickleball. Maybe by the time we get there, the pickleball craze will be over, I don't know, I hope not for the world, but you don't know,
Right.
what or wherever.
Exactly.
Doesn't it feel like that just came up out of nowhere?
But, sorry, that's all right, I just lost my,
Collection.
well, just the collection and stuff, and one of the things that's gonna be easiest is to have as much space in one area as you can, because that also reduces, staffing needs. So if I need to have people in an offsite storage facility constantly pulling materials, right? I don't know if you guys remember any of the pictures from COVID days when they actually had not only pulling stuff, but when people were coming from Lucy to Go, and everybody was doing that, but the whole, more crowded than Winterfest, but with just books in bags ready to be picked up and sent out and go. So it all sounds great, but it takes staff to do it, and it takes room to store it somewhere. So
Right.
all of those are the things that staff is going through, trying to figure out.
And maybe it's utilizing 6 portables, we'll say, because you have stacks and some of these other ones that are at least close by. So yeah, you're not gonna get instant gratification, but give somebody a half an hour, you might be able to get it pulled and back over to you, or however it functions.
Let's just say a day or two if we're on
Yeah,
tape.
I mean, that's fine, yeah. It's not like
And then-
COVID, I mean, you're still gonna have people potentially visiting,
Right.
so.
And ideally, what I would try to avoid, because, you know, you keep talking about phases and different things. Some towns have satellite library
Yes.
stations. We don't have that here.
Right.
That's actually more expensive than building out a larger single location building, because it's more of everything. It's more staff, it's more furniture, it's more security, it's more Wi-Fi, it's everything
It's
from there.
inherent cost, because a lot of times you're ending up leasing space. you
Right.
don't necessarily
So,
building it.
and we'll choose OFI just because it's close by, so anybody would say, well, that's not bad, it's close by. That would be a great swing space. Who knows where it is or what happens from that. But if that were a permanent space, we'd always be divided. For a departmental type of organization, like a town hall, that makes sense, it's okay. You know, you don't have to have everybody in a single building, and people go to different buildings for different things, so that makes sense. In terms of library, it doesn't make as much sense. It certainly doesn't make sense to have them so close together. If you had your main library and then you had a satellite library somewhere else that was easier for people to get to, whether it was on a bus line or something like that, that could make sense, but it is going to add a lot of money from that day for every other day for staffing and maintenance and upkeep and everything else. So just want to throw that out there while we're talking about it, while you're talking about options, when you're talking about phases, what can we do, what can we not do? And again, that's part of the reason that the original charter in this last rendition was, this is the space we have to work with. Make it as efficient as you can. Still give us parking. Did anybody see all the signs out there? Library parking, library parking, library parking. Please. But just, you know, that whole idea. So again, yes, we're back to the drawing board. Realistically, some of the things that town council asked for, I don't know how we're gonna pull those things off as a feasible, reasonable thing. I could talk about a satellite place. I could say, hey, we could do a satellite, we could move in there and then we can stay and keep it up. But that's not gonna save money. And I think that's really what they're looking for. I don't think people have a problem with the design and with the idea that the library needs more space. I think the problem that they have is money. And money's only gonna keep going forward. You know, we've talked about similar projects and similar price tags. It's not getting any cheaper. No, and it's not gonna get any cheaper, but it's not that the price for the program that was presented was so out of line. Crazy things in it. What it is that it's no longer 1988. And if you're gonna build, if you're gonna spread out, if you're gonna do things like that, you need to do it. When we look at the original price and go back to the price for the Anna Reynolds School, that was similar square footage and close to pricing. I think the way it was easy to get through is there was a grant for half of that amount of money. So if we could find a grant for half of the amount of money, I think town council would run to sign the paperwork. Who could say, I don't know where we're gonna find that grant, but I think that's where the challenge is for the redesigns. That's where the challenge is, and my fear is if we go too small, you guys have already bought OFI. What am I gonna do? Or am I gonna expand when after, you know, the new building is built, it's like, whoops.
The concern, I think, from the board state. There's a tendency with referendum, and this is just an overall statement, you build to a dollar amount, you get what you get. And if we're going to take what our mission was given, which is to build a library that will take us into the future, the current design, it has some nice bells and whistles. But as a whole, it basically addresses what is anticipated through all the various library studies and whatever else, that the library will be able to take us forward. The infrastructure in the current building is a challenge. All these things, we're trying to address that. We're trying to see into the future and figure out what's going to be needed that we don't even have a clue what it is in 20 years, 30 years, 50 years. Historically, if we don't, whatever we do, it's going to have to last several decades. So that's where we're going to come back to, and hopefully we can fine tune the design, offer some options, and go from there.
So just to finish my public comments, she thinks we're in a meeting together, we're not. But
Spend too much
and
time together.
I know, and to that end, I'm sorry, I just wanted to make sure I could still speak. But to that end, when we say we're building the library for now and going into the future, the part that goes into the future is our concept of having something that's very flexible space. Because that's where we're gonna get our ability to meet future needs, because we don't see the ability to go beyond our footprint. I don't think that that's feasible. Again, you know, we joke about buying Powerball tickets and doing all those other things, but that's how we get into the future. It's not like, you know, I'm driving around town in a Vespa and I'm building a house with a 3-car garage on it. We're not doing that, right? We've already got 4 cars in our 3-car garage, if you will. And we're trying to make sure that we get that extra garage and we take that space and make it more flexible than what we have today, so that we can change and morph and be flexible going forward. So it's not that it's overbuilt. Maybe we can change some of the interior designs, especially with some of the feedback from Joe Solomon in terms of, you know, let's talk about how we maintain this going forward, where it makes sense and what goes on. So I think those are all very legitimate, very good things for the board and the architect to go back and push on. But I don't think we're gonna see something that's half the size, you know? But
Right.
then that's just
fine.
where I'm coming from, or what I wanna say. And just when Leanne had made the, you know, we're building into the future, I want folks to realize that building into the future is not extra square footage. It's how flexible you make this new building and what you learn from the lessons. And, you know, in 1988, when it was done, we didn't have computers everywhere. We didn't have cell phones. We didn't have any of this stuff going on, right? And now so much has changed. So we want to be able to continue to flex with that. And I know I'm a little bit preaching to the choir, so appreciate your patience in that, but that's really where we're coming from. I'm not quite sure how they're gonna get those changes and those options in there.
Again, maybe it's just some bit at alternates, just a tweak design. You know, that from discussions with facilities and some feedback from council and others. Okay, so here's this design and here are things that we could potentially, you know.
Something that comes to mind in hearing all of this is when we mentioned Anna Reynolds and the like, is the marketing on that. As a regular, not at town hall, like going to school, that is what I think pushed that referendum through, was the poignant story from the teacher, the information that was going out to the general public as to why it was critical. Like, this wasn't an option. Like, I think that having the grant was great, but as a general public person, I had no idea about the grant. I would say most people who voted for that referendum were voting on the need and the way that they could see that need was inherent. And so even when it comes to the rest of this, a lot of our conversation tends to be about the council, and I understand that to a certain extent, we need to get it through them. But I think we may want to speak and think a lot more about, if we can sell it to the general populace, we can get the council on board.
And to that point, we have been having meetings between my facility site that's talking about this and the communications committees. And we've been discussing ways, you know, what our message should be, how we're gonna get that message out. Because like you said, we do need to convince the general public, because eventually it's gonna be coming to a vote to them, and they're gonna be the ones ultimately deciding whether it goes forward or not, so.
Well, the other thing though is if you can get the general public on side, you can get the council on side.
It's gotta be push me, pull me, right?
Yeah.
So if there's a rally cry throughout town that they need a new library, then town council is going to put it on the referendum and say, okay, here it is, vote. So you could push it through, pull it through. So we do have two prongs. The most important one, I think, is to educate the general public and get them behind this, because even once it goes on the referendum, if you are able to answer the concerns of town council, whoever town council may be at that time, you still need to get the general public behind it. It can't just be library supporters. So that's the other key thing and the key messages. You have ideas, BG. You're always
I do.
willing to listen and hear and know. So we'd love to have a program, go through it, figure it out. And I will say that I think that the thing that captured the town's interest were the worms in the breezeway. Fortunately, we don't have that issue. So, you know, we did have the mold issue. We've had atrium leaks that the town has done such a good job on, you know, tracking down year after year after year, and we're in good shape with that now. But we're squished.
Well, part of that process is to, and that's something the facilities communication is addressing, is considering an outside contractor, you know, basically an OPM that would take us forward to help us project manage it to referendum, which a lot of that is marketing.
Huge part, sorry, marketing is my initial background, so it's why that's where my brain goes. And like, even when you're talking about squished, like I remember you guys showing us the pictures of an event and like, hey, we could only house this many people and they were squished, is a great communications point of like, you know, if we had a modern library, we would be able to move these walls and we could have hosted potentially twice the number. And it's this kind of, and it's like dribbles.
Right.
Like if you're getting that out regularly to people, that it's, look, you talk about commercials. I get tired of them, but you hear the same thing over and over and over again, and it hits your brain. It's that same sort of thing that we're gonna need to be doing with the public, even as we're trying to figure out the other things on the back end. And it's the kind of thing that we need to start. And it's great to hear that facilities communication is working on this, but it's the kind of thing that we need to start like way before we even meet with the town council in January to talk about getting on the referendum, because it's those little bits and pieces that get you. I'm talking about the real estate agent that never goes to the library, but is trying to sell a house in the town, Or, you know, like there's somebody who owns an apartment building who they don't even live in the town, but they rent to people in the town. Well, if you have a great modern library, that's a selling point. That's a renting point. You know, like, it's the same as like good schools. You know, these are the kinds of things that you can get people on side who may never even use facility, but who can see the benefit of it. So it was just what made me.
So maybe you will be getting a call from our facilities and communication folks to continue to pick your brain in an unofficial capacity.
That's fine.
Yeah.
I believe in it, so otherwise I wouldn't be here.
To add to what she's saying, kind of generally, it needs to be presented as a moral necessity. Something that isn't political with a large P or a small p, but a moral reason for moving forth and seeing how it affects people, yeah, financially, but it just affects people as human beings. That I've seen in the past has swayed councils, has swayed people to see more of the value of what is presented. Of course, it does come down to money at any rate, because that's the way the system works eventually. But that can kind of also make people say, well, okay, it's money, but it's worth it. And not,
You're saying that makes me think of it, it's a New England staple. Like we are in New England, Connecticut's part of this, like it's the Constitution state. Like I'm not talking about taking it political, I'm just talking about the moral aspect of it. Most New England towns have a library, but having a library that actually services the people who live here, it makes it that moral compass, that center, regardless of anything else that might divide people. It's a place that, it's a third space that brings people together.
Great libraries make great communities.
Yes, exactly.
and not moral in the concept of right or wrong.
Yes.
Moral in terms of a necessity.
Mhm.
Well, that's part of the thing that the communication is, and as Diane said, you got ideas, bring them to them, but those are actually concepts that we've been talking about. We've been talking about doing, you know, there's so many different meetings. For example, one of the concepts that came out was to throw just kind of factoids out on Facebook. So you just hear, did you know this? Did you know that? And go from there. There's all sorts of different things. And I think sometimes the library folks are too close to the library because we just know what is happening there, making the assumption that everyone does. So again, it's about educating.
I'm a great person to run it by.
Yeah, but educating the public as to what's available. I think some people say, I can still remember one former town manager and having a conversation about just, we don't need libraries. Nobody reads hard, covered books anymore. They can download them on the internet. So do you even know what's happening across the street? There's a lot more to it than just come and get the book. So I think that's where we have to learn how to PR.
That's
Right.
The other thing I would say though about the factoids is the more that you can tie them to an emotion, the more that it will stick with people. So a factoid about the library, about like how many books are in circulation, that's nice, but I'm just cruising by. But if you tie it to like,
how
I
many
don't
people
know,
got turned
I
away
love the
from
stories
program?
I also love the stories that you guys talked to me about living here for so long and seeing the iterations and all of the things that you guys did, like old photos of what the libraries meant to the community and how.
Those old folks.
Sorry.
That's
But
kind of what I
yeah,
what I
what you're
did.
talking about is like bringing it, whenever you can bring an emotional.
Yeah.
Exactly, because that's the thing that
Back
sticks
to
with
Anna
people.
Reynolds, that jump
Yes.
things,
Yeah,
and not just because it's a show,
exactly.
just.
Well, that's part of what we've been discussing too, is you're kind of looking at the various groups that we would wanna, reach and talk about, and kind of even, part of it was also thinking of, okay, well, this is all the stuff that, the library offers now, repeating out these factoids, but also we can also say, but with the reimagined library, we can do this much more and, kind of tie it all back to what people know, we inform them about what we can do today, but, show them what we're doing tomorrow.
And the only component I add to that is just making sure there's the emotional heartstrings aspect. You know, like when you're
That's what
having
I was
an
thinking of
imaginary.
the factoid, like
Yeah.
sometimes we say, you know, we had so many programs and so many people on, which is great, or we talk about how many books have been, you know, circulated in and out, but maybe what we need to do to get those heartstrings and to let people know is like, hey, we had a program for this group and 150 people, you know, were able to attend the programs at different times, and 75 people had to be turned away because there's just not room.
Right.
Right?
Right.
And I think that's where we have to say, we have an interest there, it's going on, because I do think that our library runs very well. And for the people that are there, what's going on, and you don't see some of the hardships unless you're right there when somebody, not me, honest, has a hissy fit and says, but what do you mean I can't attend? What do you mean there's no room? Why do I have to sign up? How come I can't just come?
Yeah.
What happens from that end? So
What are
maybe
the
some of those
types
factoids has to be the positive with a little bit of a, you know, this is why we say we need more room, because yes, people are coming to programs, but people are being turned away because we don't have the space at the time. And it's not a matter of just having 4 more programs, because that's 4 times the cost of the program that you had to get those people. You can have an author talk to 1 person, or you could have them talk to 150 people, or some number in between, it's gonna cost about the same. We need to preach to the choir.
No, that's fine.
I think it was a great discussion.
Anybody else have any other comments before we adjourn this evening? Adjourn. 2, can I get a motion?
So moved.
Seconded.
Thank you all.
We have to vote.
You guys.
Aye.
So that's,
Are we off?
we're not recording any.